Hello everyone and welcome back to Double Play Baseball. In this video, Ryan and I are going to round out the AL Central by previewing the Guardians 2023 season, as well as taking a slight look back on what their 2022 offseason has been like so far. Ryan, this is our 25th team we're previewing all offseason. NL Central's coming next week, but let's finish out this week. It's going to be released on a Friday, so our viewers going to be happy, but let's break down the Guardians offseason.
So the big one, they added Josh Bell here. And that's a great fit. We'll talk about that a little bit later. They added Mike Zunino to replace Austin Hedges, who was really their only subtraction. And then you signed Touki Toussaint to a minor league deal. Not really notable, but he's been a guy who's been able to eat up some innings before for the Braves. And
he was a big prospect.
Angels last year?
Angels last year, yep.
So you add the big name in Josh Bell, replace Mike Zunino with Austin Hedges, and you don't really lose anything more. So out of these, which is the biggest one? It's so much to choose from here.
Yeah, not a lot to choose from, but there's a clear fit, and it's Josh Bell. And I mentioned coming in, I think we did a crystal ball episode where I said, for the crystal ball in the future, I see a lot of free agents that are going to want to join the Guardians because they're a team that had been playing well at the time, they've got Terry Francona. It seems like it's just a great place to play. And obviously Josh Bell, I think, was looking into that crystal ball as well, and he wanted to go join the Guardians. I like the fit. I think he's going to be a great switch hitter at first base, and now you've got two switch hitters in the lineup with him and Jose Ramirez. There weren't too many other free agents that decided to come join, but Josh Bell did, and it's a big profile free agent for the Guardians to bring in. So I like the fit. He's my biggest addition for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Despite there not being really much else to choose from, this is still one that's a good pickup, and we've seen teams where we kind of are forced to pick one player for that either left or that the team added, and this doesn't feel like one of those scenarios. Like you said, it's a great fit. Adding first base, which was kind of a hole for them last year, to pair in the middle of that order with Jose Ramirez. So I think this is going to be a great fit and going to provide a lot of production to a team that was a win away from going to the ALCS last year. So I like Josh Bell, and for their grade, I'm going with a B+, actually. And despite there not really being much here, I think it was solid, and I like it for their market. And they showed that they're going to spend, and like you said, the crystal ball, they're gonna try and spend while not being a team like the Padres. They're staying in their lane. They're not gonna hand out $400 million to Trey Turner or Aaron Judge. That's just not what the Guardians are going to do. So I like this year that they're kind of capitalizing and adding a Josh Bell, great fit, to a team that, like I said, was 1-1 away from the championship series and won the division last year. So they're trying to capitalize on a weak division, and like was seen was countless times, the Braves a couple years ago, the Phillies last year. Anything can happen once you get into the playoffs if you run into some streaky hitting and good pitching. So I think this is another candidate. I mean, I originally picked the Guardians to go to the ALCS last year. They lose in Game 5, so I think this is a team that is still capable of making some waves, and I like the addition of Josh Bell.
I don't understand why people act like Cleveland is the smallest market in the world, because, I mean, not to transcend sports here, but the Browns have made a ton of offseason moves. I think it's less of a market issue and more of an ownership issue.
No, I'll correct you there. So, it's a different in baseball. Like in the NFL, they have centralized TV rights. I actually just learned about this yesterday, so it's fresh on my mind. They have centralized TV rights, so which means they have better revenue sharing. So you can't really compare the Browns and Guardians.
I mean, but at least their rosters are in similar spots. Where the Guardians made the playoffs, and I know that not every team is bringing in the same amount of money, and I know the NFL is different, but you're still a playoff team, and I'd like to see those teams that make the playoffs capitalize and bring in free agents, because you look a couple of years ago, the Padres were in a similar spot to the Guardians. And I know you mentioned the Padres now as a team that's spending an incredible amount of money, but the Padres, San Diego hasn't always been the biggest market, but the Padres have capitalized on their better performance in recent years and went out and with ownership and GM moves made some big splashes in free agency and trades and stuff like that. So I know that, Cleveland isn't the biggest market, but San Diego wasn't for a while either. And the Guardians were a team that shocked everyone last year and made the playoffs and even move past the Rays with the youngest team in baseball. So I think they still could have done more. I'm not saying that they're terrible. I went with an above average grade still with a C+, but I'm not sure it's fair to give them a B+ just because they're in a smaller market, because they're still a playoff team last year. Obviously, they went out, they're able to sign Josh Bell. I think they could have made more moves, even if they're smaller moves too. Like, you could see smaller market teams making smaller moves and adding a higher quantity of players that are just maybe cost less money. But I think it's still time, even though there are smaller market owners who don't have as much money to use as, say, Steve Cohen does in New York. I'm not sure that I love that excuse, because I think owners, as you know, have a ton of money. They can still go out and sign players, and they showed it by signing Josh Bell. I just think that there could have been more, so I went C+.
I mean, I kind of disagree with you. They're I don't know if there's more that could have been done. Looking at this team, maybe the bullpen. I mean, but you've got Karinchak and Clase in the back end, so you kind of just piece together the middle innings. The rotation is solid with Bieber, McKenzie, Quantrill as the top three. And then looking at their lineup, there's not really a hole. Like, Oscar Gonzalez had that big playoff moment, so maybe you believe in him. And then Miles Straw, who's like one of the best defenders in baseball. So those are really only two positions that you could have done better. But you've got Quan, Ahmed Rosario. You're not going to replace Jose Ramirez. Josh Naylor was good at first. Andres Jimenez was an all-star. So there's not really an area that I would say like you needed to add anyone, and unless it was a huge free agent signing to kind of get a lot better. There wasn't like a smaller signing that I think would have been made sense for the Guardians.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think that they have some places they could have improved. It was a great shortstop class, and I'm not saying you got to go out and spend $400 million on a shortstop, but I think some shortstops would have fit. I think you could add another starting pitcher. Or maybe it's not signing, and maybe it's a trade where you move some of the players that you have as strength, where I think they have some depth starters in Quantrill, Savali, and Plesac. Maybe you trade one of those guys and go out for someone else. So I just think that they could have gotten a little bit better, and they did hit, or they pitched well enough to get past the Rays, but they didn't hit all that well in the postseason. And I think that they could have gone and maybe added one more bat. But we're picking through hairs here. Our grades aren't overall incredibly different, but I don't think I would go as high as a B+. Like, maybe you can convince me it's a B- or a B offseason considering the circumstances, but I went with a C+.
Yeah, and moving on to what to expect moving forward to their 2023 season, I'm expecting them to run it back and win the division again. And I think they're going to win around 90 plus games. Like, I think I don't remember what they were at last year. I think they were right around that number. I think they're going to run it back, do that again. And I think it'll be right there. Like I said, a team that, with Tristan McKenzie and Shane Bieber at the top, that's a team that could, if their other starters pitching well, they're getting some production from their order, I think that's a team that could make a deep playoff run.
I mean, everyone that's watched the Twins video already knows that I think the Twins are going to win the division. And that's not me saying that the Guardians are going to fall off a cliff. I do think they take a slight step back, but not to spoil any records, I have them within a couple games of the Twins. I think it's going to be right down to the wire. I think they have, another great shot at the division. I still think they have a really good shot at the playoffs, even if they don't win the division. So I still think they're a good team, but I say a slight step back because a lot like the Orioles, who didn't end up making the playoffs, and I made this argument in why I think they are going to take a step back. I do think the Guardians slightly overperformed last year, and I think they have players that, though we love to love them, the expected stats and some of the batted ball numbers or the velocity numbers and spin rate numbers, like, they're guys that don't jump off the page in that way. Like a Stephen Kwan, who had a great season last year. You look at the expected stats and you look at some of the underlying numbers, and you maybe don't think that that's going to be repeatable in 2023. Even the two starters at the top, like Shane Bieber and Tristan McKenzie, their expected numbers weren't amazing either. And then you have guys like Ahmed Rosario, who has shown he can be good, but is he going to? Like, some of these guys could take steps back, and I think you're, an injury at a couple positions away from being a slightly thin roster. Like, what happens if Mike Zunino goes down, and who are you throwing in there at catcher? He only hits one side anyways, I think pretty much only lefties, but there's just some of the magic that went right for the Guardians in 2022. I'm not sure if you can bank on that every season, and I'm not sure all of their players, I believe, are going to perform to the same level that they did in 2022. I still think they're a good team. I still like a lot of their guys, and I, not saying that any of these guys are bad players at all, but a lot of them, you look at some of the underlying numbers or statistics, and you can't bank on the same performance that you're getting every year. They're not those. They're not the guys that have the all red on the baseball savant page and have maybe just gotten unlucky, or you can bank on it every single season. They're the guys that a lot has to go right for the Guardians, I think, to be a 90-win team. I don't think it's going to happen, but I still do think they've got a shot at the division and a good shot at the playoffs.
I guess you dogging on Steven Kwan here is a good transition into my bold prediction. And I'm with Greg Amsinger. I'm going Steven Kwan batting title.
And that's possible. I mean, but it's like it's a lot of singles, and I think it's maybe less that he's likely to win the batting title and more like maybe the on-base percentage title for the American League. But it's just some of the underlying numbers where I just wonder. I know he's great defensively. He gets on base a lot, doesn't swing and miss, but doesn't hit the ball hard at all. And you look, and I read this article early in the offseason. I think it was on Fangraphs about players coming off of rookie seasons in which they had a barrel rate similar or below Steven Kwan, and all of those guys ended up being a lot of no-name players. And even though they had similar rookie seasons to Steven Kwan, they didn't end up playing all that well. And who knows, Steven Kwan could barrel the ball more in 2023, but I'm not gonna just assume that it's gonna happen. And so for the lack of hard hit balls that he had last year, I have some concern about whether. There's a lot of players like that on the Guardians where it's Tristan McKenzie who doesn't throw incredibly hard and, has been crafty in the past, but got a lot of, looking strikes on certain pitches in the zone. And it's just some of these things go the other way where they regress back to the mean that it is for normal players. And you could see the Guardians take a slight step back. That's at least what I see.
So what was your bold prediction?
My bold prediction is the one player that I think is that elite athlete, can bank on it every single year. It's Jose Ramirez. And while I might be disrespecting the Guardians and everyone might think I'm dumb for saying this about the Guardians, but in our video, I thought you were heavily disrespecting Jose Ramirez. So I'm going to say he cements himself as the consensus best third baseman in the league. I already think he is, but I think after this season, he's going to fully cement himself. But I do think he falls short of an MVP again. And I will say, this whole offseason, I've been talking to you about how hard the AL MVP is to predict. And Jose Ramirez is the one guy that I've wanted to predict for the MVP more than anyone. I know that I can't bring myself to do it when we actually make our predictions because of Trout and Ohtani and Yordan Alvarez and Judge. I think Jose Ramirez is going to cement himself as the best third baseman in the league, but I don't think he wins an MVP, even though I wanted to predict it so badly.
I just don't think he's top two, maybe even three in that conversation.
Well, I know because of how badly you just disrespected him in our top 25 video.
It was top 25. It was like 21 or something.
He's easily a top 10 player.
I don't think so. I think that's blasphemy to put him above some of the other players top 10. Maybe it was too low. It should be closer to 15, but I think it's blasphemy to have him as a top 10 player.
Well, I'm not saying it's blasphemy to think that the Guardians are going to go back 90 wins, but maybe your same hesitancy about ranking Jose Ramirez that high is the hesitancy that I have for thinking the Guardians can go back to back. So sorry, Guardians fans.
Guardians fans, let us know. I'm sure you were loving me all episode, and then I started dogging on Jose Ramirez. So maybe not so much right now. So which one of us is right here? I guess both of us are right in your eyes. Let us know what the Guardians are going to do in 2023. Can Jose Ramirez win an MVP? Jack says it's possible. I think that it's possible, but I think probably not. Make sure you like this video and subscribe as well. See where we end up having the Guardians. Will Jack end up putting them as at least a playoff team? Come our record predictions. Where will I have them going in the playoffs? We're going to do all that, awards, playoff predictions, as well as record predictions. So make sure you stick around and check that out. It'll be coming out in about, I guess, a week and a half from now by the time you're seeing this. So it's coming up soon, and baseball is coming up soon. So we're excited, and make sure you guys subscribe, and we've been Double Play. We'll see you guys next time.